Straighten up a bit, I think. Very good.
It's good. I'm waffle.
Good.
Amen.
Amen.
So, as usual, sit down. We always begin with a couple of stories. So I'm going to be given one story which we will probably mention again as we go along. That's a story from the Gemara, a story in Masechta Bava Metzia, not far from the end. And it's written there, there's a question in the Gemara that what about a Baal Choiv, somebody who owes money and he's got to pay up, but if he pays up what he owes, he won't have anything left for himself. Is there a halacha that you have to leave a little bit over for him, that he should be able to continue living normally, yeah, on a basic economical, that's what's called Mesadrim Labal Choiv, or not. So it's written that Rabbi Barabua, what he was one of the great Amoraim, not Tanoim, he was in a Beit Kfores of Goyim, a strange place to be. And who did he meet there but Eliyahu Hanavi? Now, it's something of import to notice that quite a number of the Amoraim mentioned in the Gemara used to meet up with Eliyahu very regularly. Yeah, and it's brought down by one or two of them that Eliyahu Hanavi was regular by them. He used to, be very often in their, Daladam, in their 4 cubits, he would very often be present. So they used to ask him all sorts of questions, and they dealt with him on different levels, yeah. So all of a sudden, Rabbi Barabua, he meets up with Eliyahu Hanavi in the base quarters of the Goyim. So he asks Eliyahu Hanavi about this particular halacha, what does he say? And Eliyahu Hanavi brought him a raya that you have to be Masada for the book, well, at least according to that girsa, different girsois. And then later the Gemara has the question, why did Rabbi Barabua ask Eliyahu Hanavi precisely that? Because he was in a very tight situation economically. So he asked Eliyahu Hanavi, what is he? And then there's a whole story that Eliyahu Hanavi took him up to Gan Eden, and he got him to tear off a tree that was in Gan Eden. So that's very interesting. What sort of trees are there in Gan Eden? And he told him to take the leaves off the tree and rub them on his garment, so that the beautiful odor of these leaves went into his garment. It was a very powerful odor. The rare of Gan Eden went into his... So when he got back down from Gan Eden, he met up with a guy who smelt this, and he offered him 12,000 dinari, zahor or something, just for that smell, you follow? Just for the garment. So he gave it to him, and then all of a sudden he thought that what does he need to have all this money from Gan Eden, Maybe he shouldn't have any hanua from it, It's not a thing of this world, it's from Gan Eden. So he decided that he wouldn't use the money. So what did he do? He took the whole money and he divided it up amongst poor Chassanim and colors. Yeah. And so he remained in the same economical situation that he was at the beginning. But anyway, he met up with Eliyahu Hanavi in this cemetery of Goyim. So he says to Eliyahu Hanavi, "Excuse me, my servant, aren't you a Kohen?" So Rashi says, where does he know? Don't sit at a distance like that. I can't talk to you that way. Either you sit in or you just don't take any part. So he said to Eliyahu, "Aren't you a Kohen?" So Rashi says, where did he know that he was a Kohen? Because according to certain opinions, Pinchas ze Eliyahu. You ever heard of that one?
Pinchas.
Yeah.
That Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron a Kohen, he was anyway Eliyahu Hanavi. He later, his guf took the neshama of Eliyahu Hanavi and he just kept living for hundreds of years. So Pinchas was a Kohen. So if he's Eliyahu, then Eliyahu must also be a Kohen.
No.
You follow? So therefore he said, if you're a Kohen, what are you doing in the graveyard of Goyim? You understand? So you know what he answered him? He said to him, "I hold according to Rebbe Shimon." So he said, "Oh yeah, what do you hold according to Rebbe Shimon?" So he said, "There's in another Masechta, there's a difference of opinion between the Rabban and Rebbe as to whether the Kvorim of Goyim are Matama, a Yid, or not." You follow? And Rebbe Shimon, he holds that Goyim are not Matame, only Yidden are Matame, the Meisim. Or the Meisim of Goyim are not Matame. That's what he brings from Rebbe Shimon. Now, whether we hold that way, Bapel Mamish or not, that's another story. But that's what he answered him. So, Lefi Zeh, kommt euch, that Eliyahu Hanavi is a Kohen. Now, the truth is, there are differing opinions about that. Not everybody holds that way. Even in the Midrashi Chazal, there are some opinions that he was actually from Shevet God, not from Shevet Levi, Beklal. Yeah. And there's even another opinion that he was from Benjamin. He was a Einikel of Rochel Emein. A big Einikel, a great Einikel. Of he was from Rochel, not from Leah, Beklal. So differing opinion about that. In our story, yeah, he is assumed to be a Kohen. You follow? So the question is, if he's a Kohen, what's he doing in a Vesach forest? And so he answered that he holds according to Reb Shimon. That's
Rava,
part of the story.
Rava was a Kohen?
I'm sorry?
Rava was a Ben.
Rava asked.
Rava was a Kohen?
Rava Bar Abua is his name. He asked Eliyahu Hanavi, what's he doing there?
Right.
Because he thought he was a Kohen.
Ah.
So Rashi says, where did he know that Eliyahu was a Kohen? Because he knew that Pinchas Eliyahu. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Right.
That's one story. The second story is that the Rebbe Rashav is buried in the city of Rostov. You know about that.
Who?
Not in Lubavitch.
Oh.
Because he left 4 years before his Stalkers, he left Lubavitch due to the civil wars and all the tsuras that happened after the revolution. And there was a lot of trouble in that area. And so he left in Tofresh Ayin Vov and he went over to the city of Rostov. And why he chose to go to Rostov, that's another story, and what's got to do with it, but we won't go into that. He went to Rostov. So in Tovarish Pei, after the Stalkers, they buried the Rebbe Rashab in a cemetery, but they buried him in a Jewish area, Kamulan, of the cemetery. So 12 years went past, and then all of a sudden the so-called government, communist regime, they decided that they want to build a railway. And if they want to build, that's what they do. And so they're going to build a railway, and the railway is going to go right through the Jewish cemetery where the Rosh was buried. And according to the way the Chassidim understood, the actual rail lines are kind of mamish cross the Rebbe's grave, one in front. Yeah. So, what did they do? They asked a lot of the big Rabbanim if they could move the Rebbe Rasha. Normally you don't do that, but in such a situation, it's a very, how do you call it, terrible situation. So the Rabbanim gave an okay to move the Rebbe Rasha 12 years after he was buried. And so when they moved the Rebbe Rashab, they put him in a box in order to carry the remains over to another place. And that's where the Rebbe is buried now. That's the new place. He's buried right near where he used to live. So some of the Chassidim that were there, and they weren't there right alongside the grave when they put him in the box. They said they want to look and see what's inside the box, So they asked Rabbanim, and it's also a question whether you're allowed to do that.
Right.
Because it's a question of maybe not COVID to the maid, to do that. So they didn't know what, but in the end they gave an okay. So they opened the coffin, as we might call it, and they found that the Rebbe Rasha was absolutely complete. He was exactly the same way as they had buried him.
Wow.
And not only that, had he caught the clothes that they buried him in, the tafrikin, everything was perfect, everything was untouched. And on the holy face there was like a sort of a smile, like a...
Wow.
So the Chassidim were sort of, they all fainted on the spot. And I heard the story from Rav Landa, the old Rav, not the one who just passed away, but his father. Yeah. I heard the story from him, and he heard it from one of the guys that was there. Yeah. Actually, one of the guys that saw it happen. So that's the second story. And the truth is that there are many stories about great tzaddikim that they, for some reason or another, were seen after they were buried and they were complete. Yeah. Not all of them are Rebbeim either. About other great people, we find them. So, on that basis, I want to now begin. On the basis of those two stories, I want to now begin that it's written, Vayem Hashem el Moshe, EMOR el HaKoyanim b'nei Aaron. You should say to the Koyanim, who are the sons of Aaron, V'yomato alihem, and you should say to them, Amato alihem, and you should say to them, La nefesh lo yitama be'amo. You must not, you must say to the Koyanim, and then you should say to them, it's written double, the word Emoyer v'amata. And you must tell them that they are not allowed to be tome. They're not allowed to become tome to a mess.
Right.
Yeah, la nefesh, even though the word nefesh means a living soul, is actually referring to dead people. I'm not going into that. That could be a theme of discussion, but that's not what I'm concerned with at the moment. That the Kohanim are not allowed to approach or come near or be in a oihel v'chulu where there's a dead person, because the dead person is a what's called a avi avoy satuma. He is a very, very strict level of what we call ritual impurity, tuma. And the Kohanim are not allowed to become tome. Yisraelim not commanded not to become tome, and they can become tome, but if they want to go into the Azorah, the Beis Hamikdash, then they've got to become toho. Over the Kohanim, they have a mitzvah, they're not allowed to become L'chatchila tome. What that would tend to indicate that it doesn't really have to do with going into the Beis Hamikdash. That's by Israel. Or by a Kohen, there's a inyan be'emes or be'etzem that he should not become tome. He's not allowed to become tome to a mace. Except, says the Pasha, ki im l'she'erei hakorev elov, 6 different people, ordinary Kohen, can become tome to his wife, other very close relatives. He is allowed to become tome. Or if he meets up with what they call a mace mitzvah. Do you know what a mace mitzvah is? A mace mitzvah means that you find a dead person and there's nobody to take care of him and bury him. Then it's a mitzvah for you to bury him. Now we're going to meet up with another story in reference to a mace mitzvah, that you know that after Rabbi Akiva was killed by the Romans, in a very terrible way.
Yeah.
So he was laying for several days, he was laying dead without burial, because people were so scared by what had happened, they didn't want to go out and indicate, that they were connected with him. Maybe they would suffer the same fate. So therefore, because of the fear and everything that was ruling at that moment, they didn't go out to bury Rabbi Akiva. So you know who did it? It's brought down in a medrash that Eliyahu Hanavi, he went out, and he buried, how do you call him, Rabbi Akiva. He buried Rabbi Akiva. So it's written that somebody met up with him while he was doing that, and he asked the same question as what Rabbi Bavua asked him. He said, "Listen, you're a Kohen, aren't you? You're not allowed to be matame." You follow? Somebody met up with him, and you know what he said? You know what he answered Eliyahu Hanavi? He said, "Tzaddikim are not matame." That's what he said. Tzaddikim, even when they're dead, they're not matame. That's what he said. That's what he actually said. Now, Tosfos, in this sugya that I just quoted you before, he says that Eliyahu Hanavi said that just to push him off, And he said we find in a few places that Eliyahu Hanavi couldn't be bothered answering all the details of halachas, and he would just say something, to push people off for the time being. So he didn't really mean that, Eliyahu Hanavi, he just sort of pushed them off. And the real reason why Rabbi Akiva did it was because he was a mace mitzvah. And therefore a mace mitzvah, anybody, even a Kohen, is commanded to look after him. So therefore that's why he looked after Rabbi Akiva. However, he said that tzaddikim are not not matama. You follow? That's what he did say. Like he said over here, something about the kivrei goyim are not matame, and Tesis is the same thing. He just said that to push him off, because that's not really the halacha. We don't really pass him that way. You follow? Over come days that we could suggest that Eliyahu Anovi, according to Tesis' opinion, says things in order to sort of push people off sometimes, not always, but just to sort of, not to get into a discussion. So, however, according to that medrash, he actually let out of his mouth, Eliyahu Hanavi, that Rabbi Akiva was a tzaddik, and the tzaddikim were not. I know my tummy. He actually let that out of his mouth. Yeah. Anyway, so comes along the question in the mind of the intelligent reader: what's this whole inyan that a mace is tamei? A Jewish person, he passes away. He should be and he is. He has a lot of demanding COVID. You have to give COVID to a mate. You follow? So why should he be considered a voice, a tumah? He's like a very, very strict level of tumah. And if you just come and there's a tree over your head and you just happen to be standing in the Daladamas, that'll make you become Tomei and a whole thing. And the Koyanim are not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to become Tomei. A mitzvah that the Koyanim are not allowed to. So I asked the question, why would that be? Why would a Jewish body become Tomei in a very, very strict way? Very powerful Toma.
I mean,
we got any,
it seems obvious because
this goes back to your original story about the tzaddik who is nifter. The Rebbe Rashab is in perfect condition. Do you understand? Can you hear what I'm saying? The Rebbe Rashab was in perfect condition.
Oh. Yeah.
This is connected to this.
You're already jumping ahead. We're coming to this. But that still didn't answer our question. Why should a body of a yid be a voice a tumah? And according to Rabbi Shimon, only a yid. A kohen doesn't have that koya kaviochel. He doesn't have the ability to be tomei. Only yid. So I thought the shayla, what is the inyan here? So I thought the question, what is that? So comes along, like in many cases, the Sefer HaChinuch. And the Sefer HaChinuch, he gives, as a one-on, tamim for all the mitzvahs. And he was a great Rishonim. He was in the time of the Rishonim. We don't know exactly his name, because he never wrote his name on his Sefer. But we call him the Sefer HaChinuch. There are certain sforas as to who he was. But we won't go into all that now. He was a very, very great authority. So he writes like this. And the Sefer HaChinuch writes that what is the body? He said the body is a material thing. So it's written in Tanya that the bodies of the Goyim are really shot to strict levels of klippos. It's very hard to say that about the body of a Yid. And therefore, we can suggest that the body of a Yid is klippos noiga, not chas v'shalom. And so the body of a Yid can have an aliyah the whole time if it's into Kedusha through the avodah of the neshama.
Right.
Through the avodah of the ruchnias inside the Yid, and he can be mashpia, the koyach of the ruchnias on the gashmias, and he can elevate it into the inner of Kedusha. Oh, but what does that? Does that, says the Sefer Chinuch, the koyach of the neshama, and in the neshama gufa, the seichel. He said Hashem put seichel inside a man, and he said a Yiddish seichel, a Jewish seichel, has got the ability, mamish, to choose between teva, ra, and when you choose tov, you draw everything with you. Come over, Batani, you elevate everything, so your body goes up from Klippas Noiga, and it becomes Nidbach Lefi Shor, for the time being at least, by a Beinani. It becomes Nidbach into Kedusha. However, says the Sefer Chinuch, when the Neshama leaves the body, it's like the crown on the king has left, it's gone away. There's been a split and a departure, that the body is left. So he said the body being left doesn't have the power of the neshama and the seichel, HaKodesh, of a Yid to drive away all the not Ritzoyim and elevate it to Kedusha. Oh, that's just what the clippers have been waiting for. When the neshoma's gone away and the body's there, so the clippers get at it, and they don't really have any what you might call opposing force. And so they pull the body back down into what it's made of. It's made of, how do you call it, boss of a dome. That's what and therefore the guf falls into a state that the neshama didn't allow it to fall that way. Yeah. So, that's what the Sefer Chinuch said. Nimtelefi said that really the guf of a Yid is like like Klippas Noiga. It's a middle point. It can, through the effect of the tsura, which is called the Nefesh Elokis and the divine soul, it can have an aliyah and it can be shire to Inyana Kedusha. If it doesn't, then it can fall into Klippas, just like Klippas Noiga. So when the neshama departs, that's what happens. It falls. And to a certain extent, it would appear from the words of the Sefer Chinuch that that's what the clippers have been waiting for. Now that the neshoma's gone away, so they as it were, are mishgaber, and the guf, falls into of a mirror, it falls into the state of a very heavy yanika from the koiras of liumas, and therefore it becomes tomei. Because the whole concept of tumah needs a careful definition. But basically, tumah is a koyah which is moneya, the shaykhs el kedusha. When you become tomei, you've got a certain how do you call it, force, let's put it that way, in your makeup, which is preventing you becoming shy to taklis HaKedusha. Therefore, it's very important, the whole idea of tahara. Therefore, we find a whole lot of discussion about it. And that's one of the reasons why Siddim are very active in going to the mikveh often, because that takes away some of this effect of what you might call tumah, and that makes it possible for you to appreciate more in the inner of Kedusha. And therefore we find that people like the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov, both of them, said that one of the reasons that they were able to gain so much was that they used to be very, very regular the whole time, Tevel in the mikveh, And it's mashma that the Baal Shem Tov would even go several times a day into the mikveh. And the Arizal, he would go, you guys know what the mikveh was. And in those days, it didn't have a big binyan over it. It was just, I remember when I first used to come to Tzfas, that the Arizal's mikveh was just a little hole in the ground, And maximum, you could sort of creep under a little to get undressed. but yeah, and they built a little ladder inside that,
Yeah.
and you could creep down the ladder into the water. That
Was it
was
in a
the whole
cave?
thing. Yeah.
Was it